One of the most painful truths you can ever wake up to is this: the person you begged to stay never once wondered what it cost you to hold on. You replay every conversation. You justify every red flag. You call it loyalty, love, destiny. But deep down, a quieter voice whispers, they were never really choosing you. You were the only one choosing. And tonight, I want to show you something that might change the way you see that entire story. Because what if your struggle to let go was never really about them at all? What if it was about a part of you that you abandoned long before they ever walked away? A part of you that has been trying to reach you through every painful relationship you've ever had. If you stay with me by the end of this journey, you won't just understand why it has been so hard to let go of someone who never deserved you. You'll see why letting go of them might be the first real act of love you've ever given yourself. So take a slow breath. Feel your shoulders soften. You don't have to be strong right now. You just have to be honest. Let's begin. There's a moment that doesn't look dramatic from the outside. You're alone. The room is quiet. The messages have stopped. The calls aren't coming. You stare at your phone. You scroll through old photos. Your chest feels tight, as if your whole identity is wrapped around a person who isn't even here. You tell yourself stories. Maybe they'll realize my worth. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe I'm asking for too much. But something deeper is happening beneath the surface. This isn't just heartbreak. This is your unconscious mind dragging old wounds into the light. It's the child inside you who learned that love is something you must earn through silence, compliance, and self-sacrifice. It's the teenager who believed that being chosen meant tolerating being ignored. It's the adult who keeps repeating the same pattern, hoping this time it will hurt less. The person you can't let go of is standing right on top of these old fault lines. They didn't create these cracks, they just pressed on them. In Jungian psychology, there's an idea that quietly explains why you might cling to someone who clearly does not deserve the space they occupy in your heart. It's called the shadow. The shadow is everything you learn to hide about yourself. Your needs, your anger, your jealousy, your sensitivity, your desire to be seen and chosen and cherished. All the traits that threatened your image of the good one, the strong one, the one who never complains, got pushed down into the dark. You became someone easy to love by erasing the parts of you that asked for real love. And then one day a person enters your life. They are charming, or fragile, or broken in a way that makes you want to fix them. You think, if I can love them well enough, maybe everything will finally make sense. You feel needed, you feel special, you feel like this is your chance to prove you are worthy. But this is where the trap begins. Because often the person you can't let go of is the exact kind of person who feeds on the parts of you that you exile. You say, "It's fine, I don't mind." You say, "They're going through a lot, I understand." You say they didn't mean it like that. You call it empathy. But your shadow calls it something else. Abandonment. Again, here's the paradox that keeps you stuck. You think you're holding on to them, but in reality you're holding on to a role. The role of the rescuer, the patient one, the one who understands, the one who forgives without being asked, Letting go of them doesn't just mean losing a person. It means losing the identity you've invested in for years. Who are you if you're not the one who always stays, the one who sees the good in people, even when that good never shows up in their actions toward you? This is why you feel so torn. You're not just grieving their absence. You're grieving the version of yourself that believed suffering was proof of love. Let's make this very clear. Letting go of someone who never deserved you does not mean you failed. It does not mean you were not enough. It does not mean you gave up too soon. It means you finally looked at the emotional math and stopped pretending the numbers added up. Your nervous system has been doing calculations in the background. How many times did you stay silent so they wouldn't leave? How many times did you say it's okay when your body screamed that it wasn't? How many nights did you wait for a message that never came, just to convince yourself you weren't expecting anything? Each moment became a tiny wound. Individually, they seemed small. Together they became a story. I'm not worth more than this. That story is not the truth. It's a script you learned from past pain, and now you have a chance to rewrite it. Imagine your life as a house with many rooms. There is a room for your joy, a room for your ambitions, a room for your friendships, a room for your creativity. And then there is a room you rarely enter, the room where you keep all the things you've decided are too much: neediness, anger, fear of abandonment, the deep longing to be held exactly as you are. You locked that door a long time ago. Now imagine this person you can't let go of. They don't just live in your house. You've given them a key to every room. You've let them walk through your joy, your peace, your sleep, your appetite, your concentration. They leave drawers open and lights on. They knock things over and never really clean up. But the most dangerous thing they do is this: they stand in front of the locked room and convince you that your pain is the price of keeping them close. If you open that door and show me your real self, they signal with their actions I might not stay. So you don't open it. You keep the door shut. You keep yourself small. You swallow the words that might disturb them. And then you ask, why can't I let them go? Because on some level, you think that if they leave, they will take your last chance at being loved with them. But here is the truth. They were never loving you. They were loving the version of you that was edited to make them comfortable. Let's create a prediction gap here. You might believe that once you let go, you will feel empty. You might imagine endless, lonely nights scrolling through memories, regretting the moment you chose your dignity over their presence. But something very different tends to happen over time. At first, yes, there is silence. Your body shakes with the absence of their messages. You instinctively reach for your phone. You want to check their profile, convince yourself they miss you, find proof that you mattered. This is withdrawal, not from love, from the illusion of love. You were addicted to being almost chosen, almost prioritized, almost respected. And your mind doesn't know who it is without that constant almost. But if you hold steady through this early storm, something subtle shifts. You start to notice that the silence doesn't just feel empty, it feels cleaner. The absence of their chaos begins to feel like the presence of something else: space. Space to think, space to breathe, space to feel your own emotions without immediately translating them into Is this too much, or will they leave if I say this? That space is not a punishment. It is your life returning to you. Jung once suggested that the things we run from in ourselves come back to us in the form of fate. The partners we choose, the friendships we cling to, the bosses we tolerate, the dynamics we repeat. When you stay with someone who doesn't truly value you, you're unconsciously repeating an old lesson. I must be less to be loved. You dim your light. You bend your boundaries. You rationalize disrespect. Not because you enjoy suffering, but because at some point in your life, suffering was tied to connection. Maybe love came with mixed signals. Maybe affection was withheld as punishment. Maybe you learned that your needs caused problems, so you learned to fold them away. And now, when you meet someone who also doesn't want to meet you fully, your shadow recognizes the pattern and calls it home. This is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Because once you see the pattern, you cannot unknow it. You can't go back to believing they hurt me because I'm not enough. Once you've tasted the possibility that they hurt me because I kept accepting less than I deserve, that realization burns. It also liberates. So how do you actually let go? Not as a slogan, not as a motivational quote, but as a lived experience. First, you stop making them the main character of your pain. Yes, they did what they did. Yes, their choices were hurtful, selfish, or careless. But if you stay stuck in the story of what they did, you miss the deeper question. Why did I stay where my soul was starving? That question is not self-blame. It's self-inquiry. It allows you to turn the light inward and ask, where did I learn that my feelings are negotiable? Who taught me that being chosen means being exhausted? When did I decide that my love must constantly prove itself to be accepted? Sit with these questions, write them down. Let the answers come slowly. As you do, you begin to meet the younger versions of you, the ones who decided it was safer to shrink than to risk being rejected as your full self. You realize you are not just letting go of a person, you are letting go of an entire emotional childhood. Second, you reclaim your boundaries. For a long time, boundary might have sounded like a threat, something that drives people away, something that makes you difficult or cold. But boundaries are not walls, they are doors. They don't shut love out, they filter it. You begin small. You stop apologizing for how you feel. You stop explaining basic limits. You stop chasing people who repeatedly show you they are not available in the way you need. When that old urge rises, the urge to send a long message to explain your worth, to remind them of everything you did for them, you pause. You ask, if they wanted to treat me better, would they really need this explanation? If the answer is no, you let the message live and die in the Notes app, not in their inbox. Each time you resist the pull to reopen that door, you're not depriving yourself of love. You're depriving your wound of its favorite distraction. Third, you reframe the emptiness. There will be nights when the bed feels too big, when your thoughts echo in the quiet, when you miss even the version of them that hurt you. In those moments, your mind will whisper, maybe some love, even bad love, is better than this. But that is your fear speaking, not your truth. Instead, try another sentence. This loneliness is not a verdict. It's a transition. You are not empty. You are unoccupied. Your energy is no longer consumed by reading between lines, analyzing delayed replies, guessing what mood they are in today. You are not being punished. You are being reset. In that reset, you can ask, what did I put on pause to make room for someone who never made room for me? What dreams did I shrink so I wouldn't surpass them? What friendships did I neglect because I was always waiting on their attention? Slowly, you start to fill your life with things that do not depend on someone else's inconsistency. Books that challenge you. Work that excites you. People who listen when you speak. Places where you can exist without auditioning. The emptiness begins to feel less like a hollow and more like open sky. Fourth, you rewrite what deserve means. You spent a long time believing that you must earn your place in someone's life. Be more patient, more understanding, more forgiving, less demanding, less emotional, less complicated. You told yourself that if you could become perfect, perfectly quiet, perfectly supportive, perfectly low maintenance, then finally someone would stay. But people who truly deserve you do not require the death of your soul as proof of your loyalty. You deserve consistency. You deserve respect. You deserve to be listened to when you speak. You deserve repair when you are hurt. You deserve love that expands you instead of love that empties you. Deserve is not arrogance. Deserve is alignment. And when you start treating yourself as someone worthy of that alignment, your standards stop sounding unrealistic and start sounding like basic survival. Somewhere along this process, something unexpected happens. You look back on that person, the one you couldn't imagine living without, and you see them differently. They are no longer a tragic soulmate, no longer the only one who really understood you, no longer the center of your emotional universe. You see them as they are a human being with their own wounds, their own shadows, their own limitations. You don't need to make them a villain to let them go. You don't need to romanticize them as the one that got away either. You can simply say, this was a classroom. I stayed longer than I should have, but I learned the lesson. The lesson is not that people are terrible. The lesson is not that love is dangerous. The lesson is that you will always recreate the way you treat yourself through the people you allow close. And now, you know better. If this journey is resonating with you so far, take a second to support the space that's supporting you. Like a subscribe or a simple comment saying I choose myself might not seem like much, but it's a small act of choosing your growth. And it helps this kind of message reach others who are still stuck where you once were. Now let's add one more twist, because there is a part of this story that almost no one tells you. Letting go of someone who never deserved you is not just about creating space for better people. It's about making peace with the parts of you that attracted and tolerated that person in the first place. You can block them. You can delete their photos. You can avoid places where you might run into them. But if you don't sit with the version of yourself who thought, this is the best I can get you, we'll meet them again. Different name, different face, same pattern. The real closure is not, I hope they someday regret losing me. The real closure is, I will never again abandon myself like that for anyone. That is the moment your story shifts. From here, the journey becomes quieter, but deeper. You start listening to your intuition sooner. You feel your body tensing when a joke cuts too deep, when attention comes only when they need something, when effort feels one-sided. Instead of overriding those signals, you treat them as sacred. You no longer wait for things to become unbearable before you act. You no longer need a dramatic ending to justify leaving. You no longer confuse chaos with passion. You realize something simple, yet radical. Peace is not boring. It's just unfamiliar. You were conditioned to equate anxiety with love, the racing heart, the obsessive thoughts, the fear of losing them. Now when you experience steady, calm presence, your old wiring might whisper, "This feels too easy. Something must be wrong." But you stay. You breathe through the discomfort of safety. You let your nervous system learn that love does not have to hurt to be real. One day, without fanfare, you notice that you haven't thought of them in weeks. Their name no longer stings. Their memory no longer pulls you under. You can remember both the good and the bad without feeling like you're going to collapse into pieces. You realize that your life has grown around that empty space like a tree growing around a rock. The wound has not been erased, but it has been integrated. You no longer see yourself as the person they walked away from. You see yourself as the person who walked away from who you used to be. That is the quiet miracle of letting go. So tonight I want to leave you with this. Think of one person, one situation, one story that still holds more of your energy than it deserves. Not with hatred, not with obsession, just with quiet honesty. Ask yourself, what part of me is still trying to prove something here? What version of me am I refusing to outgrow? What kind of love am I afraid I'll never find if I release this? You don't have to answer out loud. You don't have to fix it all in one night. Just notice. Because the moment you see the pattern, it starts to lose its power. Every time you choose not to send that late-night message, you are choosing yourself. Every time you say no to half-hearted effort, you are choosing yourself. Every time you walk away from someone who treats your presence as optional, you are choosing yourself. And each small act of choosing yourself sends a signal to your mind, to your heart, to your future. I am no longer available for love that demands I disappear. The future will still bring people who trigger old fears. It will still bring moments of loneliness. It will still bring questions you don't know how to answer yet. But you are not who you were when you first clung to someone who never deserved you. You have seen your shadow and survived it. You have walked through emptiness and found yourself in it. You have learned that you can love deeply without abandoning your own soul. Letting go was never about proving anything to them. It was about finally believing something about you, that you are not here to be almost loved. Not here to be a background character in someone else's story. Not here to trade your peace for crumbs of attention. You are here to live a life that feels like it belongs to you. A life where your heart is not a bargaining chip. A life where your love is given from wholeness, not from hunger. The best chapters of that life are not behind you. They are ahead, waiting in the people you have not met, the places you have not seen, the versions of yourself you have not yet grown into. And they begin every time you release what was never meant to stay. So take one more deep breath. Feel your chest rise and fall. Just for a moment, trust that by letting go, you are not losing, You are finally making room. And the story of what fills that room next, that story is still unwritten. We will explore that part in another night, in another chapter of your becoming.